and foremost, I just want to say thank you everyone for joining this morning. Welcome to the NASPA Careers and Student Affairs Month sessions that we are hosting. Today we are going to be hosting the session about approaching academic advising, getting into and through your advising journey. So we appreciate you being here. These are some of our last few sessions of the month, so glad you all kind of jumped in while we still have those. So I am going to go ahead and before I pass over to Erin and Nicole, just want to remind folks that we are recording today's session. If at any time you do not want the session recorded, or especially if you want to share something of your own story and wish it to not be on a recording, especially because we will be sharing this through the NASPA platforms, feel free to message, unmute, chat us, and we'll go ahead and pause that recording before you do so. But I will go ahead and pass the floor over to our lovely presenter today, Erin Nicole Vedar.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. From wherever you are in the country, just realized that this was a pretty large platform and everything. It is 9 a.m. in San Diego, California. So I appreciate y'all that are coming in on the same time zone as I am. I'm going to start sharing my screen really quick. But welcome to Approaching Academic Advising, because I really wanted an alliteration. Getting into and through your advising journey. If you are unable to turn on your camera today, that is totally fine. I just would love if this could be as interactive as possible through the chat or through any other means. Originally, when I planned out this presentation, I wanted it to be in person, more of a round table, a really chill, like, see who's in the room and talk about our different journeys. Transferring it to virtual is a little hard or a little clumsy, but it'll still be good. I hope you still get something out of it. But my name is Erin Nicole Vedar. You're going to hear me talk about myself a lot today, and I hope to also get to hear about all of you as well. I am currently a senior academic advisor at the University of California, San Diego, within 6th College, because we have a decentralized multi-college system. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. So to give a little rundown of what we're going to do today, again, trying to be very chill and conversational. Would love to know who is here and what you all would like to get out of today. Talk a little bit about my own backstory, which is honestly just only one way that this whole journey can look. I'm big on trying to validate that your journey is your own and your timeline is valid, no matter what other folks are doing. And then would love time to discuss with all of you literally what you want to know. And of course, like figuring out what's the next thing to do. Where do we go from here? Whether you have yet to become an academic advisor and you're still figuring it out, or if you are an academic advisor currently and you're trying to see what the next move is from here. I want to hold space for all those types of things, whatever is most relevant to you all. So again, this is me. I have graduated from San Diego State University 3 times with a degree in psychology, a master's in education with an emphasis in counseling, and most recently the MA in post-secondary educational leadership with a specialization in student affairs, or the SDSU PELSA program. I will refer to this program a lot because it gave me the most relevant experience for what I'm doing now. I also identify as a first-generation Filipinx American, so shout out to Filipino American History Month this month. And what other salient identities? I'm born and raised in San Diego, California. I just truly have never left, but I do love to travel. And if you would also like to introduce yourself, feel free to either unmute or post it in the chat. Name, pronouns if you're comfortable. I'm she, her, and they, them. Any roles you hold in the institution you're from, especially if you're not in this time zone. That would be awesome to know too, just so I can be a little more cognizant of it because I'm very California centric. So would anyone like to start?
I'm happy to verbally share. So good morning, everyone. My name's Carrie Ann Urabe. I use the she series for my pronouns, and I currently work at UC San Diego as the Associate Dean of Student Affairs and Director of Residence Life within 7th College. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Just I primarily have worked in residence life, so excited to learn more about advising and that experience. So thank you.
I'd be happy to share if nobody else was also wanted to go at bat.
Yes, please.
Oh, sure. My name is Ryan Latimer. I'm the first year programs coordinator in the College of Engineering at the University of Michigan. And for the sake of brevity, I'll condense my long story down to saying I started off as first way back in the day as a journalist and writer. Eventually went into teaching, mostly at the secondary level, writing language arts and whatnot. And then from there, became far more interested in higher education, specifically academic advising. And I've been actually pursuing that for many, many years now. And I've managed to get this far at the U of M, which was like, the chasing, it was like grabbing a unicorn. And then the other unicorn being finally getting into academic advising. And I've just found myself having a very, very difficult time breaking that particular wall.
Okay.
And I've been through quite a bit to get here, but I'm too stubborn to stop. So any leg up I can get, I would I try to grab that. So nice to meet all of you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for being here.
Mhm.
And in the chat, we've got Rachel Hart, who's SDSU staff at the Center for Inclusive Excellence, interested in advising and coaching equity-minded practices and forwarding justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives and efforts. Trying real hard to break down all those acronyms, just in case. And of course, we got PJ, who's Assistant Dean at Student Affairs at Six College at UC San Diego. She's in the same hallway as me. Definitely resonating with the journey and the difficulties of getting into advising with Rachel and Ryan, and Dr. Michelle Carter from Campbellsville University in Campbellsville, Kentucky, right? That's the acronym for that. Again, very California centric. I apologize. The AVP and Executive Director of Academic Support. Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. I hope this is a good listen regardless. I think we've got like one more, Whitney, if you...
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Whitney Hadiwano Ibarra, pronouns she, her, hers. I currently serve as the Programs and Special Initiatives Coordinator at API Data, which is a research center at the UC Riverside School of Public Policy. I don't do advising now, but I miss the world of advising, so love to get more insight on it. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you so much for being here. And then just so I'm not forgetting, Alex. Oh, cool. Alex from Coastline College in Fountain Valley, California, currently in the MSW program, so social work at University of Michigan. Shout out to y'all coming from different time zones. That's wild to me. So thank you so much for being here. I hope today is useful. But we've got varying experiences for sure. Daniel, did you want to introduce yourself? I'm like,
yes, I can. I just realized I didn't include most of my intro in my intro. Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel Hwanek. I use the he, him series. I am the executive assistant to the Dean of Student Affairs at Six College at UC San Diego. So a lot of Six College folks here today. I am at the beginning of my student affairs journey. So I have been getting to enjoy being in all of these various sessions so I can see these other functional areas that I may have not considered just yet. So excited to hear you speak, Erin, Nicole.
Yay! So excited. Thank you all again so much. So to kind of move a little bit, always got to have some learning outcomes, right? Again, very simple. Just want to share our professional goals and our journeys as they're related to academic advising. It's also okay if being an academic advisor is not your like sole like target. It's okay if you just want to get advising experiences, and we can provide some like context and clarity on those as well. But of course, wanting to understand just the different pathways, it will look different for lots of different people. I think one of the only things in common is that it might be hard, which a lot of these journeys are very difficult in student affairs. And of course, wanting time to reflect on next steps. I feel that sometimes all of our school years are so busy, our students are always in need. So it can be difficult to make time to kind of reflect on, what have I done? Where do I want to go? What am I taking away from these experiences as they're like coming at me nonstop? So wanting to carve out some time for us in this space as well. So kind of mentioned a little bit, again, wanted to make this conversational, but in chat or anything, if there's anything you haven't already mentioned of what you want to know, I think it's I'm generally hearing that folks are interested in advising skills, becoming an advisor. How do you finally get in? Yes, yes, yes. Hopefully some part of my journey can become relevant to you, of course. So I will start talking a little bit about my own journey, and hopefully allow you all time to like reciprocate that as well. I want this space to be very just co-created. And of course, if you don't want any part of it recorded, if some of it's a little too spicy for a NASPA recording, like let us know so we can stop recording. But here are the highlights. Here are the parts that I tell my mom about as like a first gen student who like, parents are from the Philippines. Maybe they don't understand everything, but these are the big like landmarks, right? I will mention there's a bunch of things that happen before we even graduate from the SDSU like student affairs program that are also extremely important to my explanation today. But these are the highlights. In May of 2021, graduated from the PELSA program. So that means that I did do most of my student affairs experiences virtually during a pandemic. So that gives me a very interesting lens on this work and all of my experiences, because a lot of it has to be done hybrid on the fly. Or fully virtual in a time of like trauma and panic, and it's very difficult to still continue to be a person and do your job and support your students when everyone's going through a very similar thing. But in August of 2021, I was able to start in an academic advisor position here at Sixth College at UC San Diego. So I went from graduating from SDSU, kind of just wanted to I wanted to work somewhere that I had not already given so much tuition money to. So I succeeded and I went to UC San Diego, and it's been wonderful. And earlier this year, I was able to get promoted into a senior academic advisor position, which not every campus has those types of positions. I think generally some campuses will just have academic advisors and then maybe their assistant deans and their deans. So providing some context. And then there's me now, about 2 years in, and kind of figuring out what happens next. The real meat of the presentation is what's happened before we got to all of this cool stuff and what's happening sort of during this journey, and things I've sort of picked up that I hope would be useful to folks that are thinking about, like, I just want to get to academic advisor. Similarly, I felt very determined to get into it. It took me a really long time as well. And then I finally got it. And then I was hit with a whole bunch of new things that I was not expecting and did not see coming. So this is to shed some light on that as well. I kind of broke today's discussion topics down into things that I have experienced. There are 100% things I have missed, or 100% things that just I don't know a ton about. Hopefully someone in this room does, or knows someone who does. I'm real big on networking and community building, y'all. But I just wanted to discuss sort of things that happened before I got to that big milestone of like, yes, I have graduated with my master's degree, or yes, I got the yes finally from a job application. So I wanted to discuss like grad school or not to grad school. Is it required? I think in student affairs, there's a lot of ways that you can get into positions, but a lot of it is in my experience, from what I have noticed, a lot of it can be linked to networking. I put a quote here from a friend of mine: your network is your net worth. It is unfortunate that a lot of the times it is who you know. But how can you get those sorts of connections? A lot of folks have found that a master's degree of some kind. Yes, of course. You can get a lot of those networks and experiences as a grad student. I remember when I was in the SDSU Student Affairs program, they literally assigned us. They gave us assignments of, hey, go out and go attend workshops, go attend conferences virtually, and talk to people who are doing what you want to do and ask how they did it and connect with them. And then those people end up becoming a part of your network. And when they hear, oh, okay, so and so wants to become an academic advisor, this position just opened up with an office I really like. So I'm going to tell you about it and tell you how you can like apply for it, how you can better prepare for it, stuff like that. A lot of grad school is just building that network, because by the time you get to the point where you're going to graduate, it's time to activate that network and then get folks helping you out. I'm also really big on discussing like professional development. I think that any experiences you have up to this point can be used as relevant and transferable skills. Before I sort of like stumbled into student affairs, I originally wanted to be a therapist. I had wanted to be a therapist since like high school. I became a psychology major with that intention. However, as a first generation student, trying to become a first generation grad student, I did not know how to apply. I did not know what was like being asked of me. I didn't know all the weird unspoken nuances of applying to jobs or going for programs or anything like that. I just knew that I wanted it. I was going to work as hard as possible. I just needed someone to say yes. But unfortunately, many people said no. A lot of programs, I was rejected from a lot of therapy programs. And looking back on it, I simply think I just was not ready. So I shifted my focus. I reevaluated my values as like a person and the work I want to do. The main reason I wanted to be a therapist was so that I could help people, which is very broad. I think a lot of us are in a similar, maybe helping profession or in student affairs or higher ed, because we want to help our students. We want to support our students, support each other, because at some point in our own journey, we experienced hardship and someone helped us. So we would like to help more people like that. A lot of full circle moments sort of thing. So I ended up working for a like community program or a nonprofit program part-time. It required me to be a part-time student so that I could work in high schools doing outreach for my high school students to go to college. I would prepare them for all of the applications, prepare them for the SATs back when they were relevant, and help them with all of the financial aid forms. I used to know all of them, and they were so many. Those experiences helped me understand, like, okay, I like talking about this structure of education. I like making sure that students from like underrepresented backgrounds can get support to go where they want, because there are resources, there are scholarships, there are people who believe in them and want them to get there, especially for our first gen students or folks considering going to community college and then transferring. I wanted to validate any form of the journey. However, when my seniors got their acceptance letters and got their ID numbers and everything, and they all like were swept off, I wondered what it was like when they got there. Which is how I was interested in student affairs. I still wanted to do the same work, get you through some phase of your life, support you in your long-term career goals. So I kind of just kept on trying to chase that feeling. So I guess one of the biggest things for me is like, what is it that you value? And how can you keep doing it? Because as long as you're doing something that you enjoy or something that feels fulfilling, something that feels valuable to you, the work will feel similar, even if it's in a different place or a different context. So when I finally got into my graduate program, I worked at a transfer career and evaluation center in a community college here in San Diego. So I got to help students with transferring out and with their resumes and cover letters and stuff. My logic back then was, if I can help other people get jobs, at some point I will be able to get me a job. Because up to that point, I had experienced a lot of rejections and a lot of like, oh, we'll take you. Never mind. We don't have funding to hire you now. So I wanted to get, like, when I got my yes for grad school, I wanted to make sure that there was no opportunity for someone to say no to me anymore. Of course, that's really unreasonable, but I was very determined. I wanted the something to work really hard toward, the thing to motivate me. But I always tried to emphasize that the variety of experiences I had came from that job where I was working in high schools. It's like, okay, so what do you know about college students? And I'm like, I may not know everything about college students, as I am still learning and needing to get into it, but I know what my students are like before they go to college. And that is that is all of your students. Every single one of your students had to have gone to high school at some point in their lives. And I know a lot about them. And then as I started picking up more experiences, just sort of sharing my story with faculty advisors, with mentors, and kept telling people like, oh, okay, I think I'm interested in this. I think I want to become an advisor. I'd like to get more experience in research and assessment, building that network just through word of mouth and being very like, I don't know, having a lot of audacity. Especially virtually. It's very difficult to make these connections virtually. You have to put time on a calendar and convince someone you are worth the Zoom energy. That was also a really large part of my journey as well. To go into different learning moments, I learned very quickly that I only have so much energy for all of my students, for all of the folks I got to interact with, and then also for myself. Especially if I was just trapped in my room and the whole world is panicking. I suddenly realized that I couldn't just like get lost in the work and just like, oh, it feels fulfilling to just be helping other people and not be worrying about myself or anything. Did not have a choice, had to find the balance. And I highly recommend if a balance is difficult to find in your life, find it before you get into these sorts of roles, or find it as soon as you get into these roles. Because I think that's the one thing that I wish I knew more about when I became an advisor, especially as I'm navigating both, like most of our work is hybrid, but we also need to be present physically, and figuring out what that is when I personally had most of my experiences virtually. Applying to jobs, which I think would probably be most relevant to Ryan. It can be exhausting. It can be difficult. But the reason why I didn't start like immediately after graduation was because I wanted to prioritize taking care of myself. I had lost a mentor earlier before I had graduated. So that year of 2021 was extremely difficult. Like my mentor, Dr. Ray Monzon, who wrote my letters of recommendation, who encouraged me every step of the way, he had passed away from COVID. So when it turned to like finishing my program and applying for jobs, it felt like a small miracle. The applying is easy, it's the interviews that'll get you. That is very true, because you can go to any like resource about making the perfect resume and the perfect cover letter, and then you can get the interview, but then it's getting there that can be really difficult. Totally hear that. It can be really difficult to get into an interview and then to get the yes after the interview. I feel like I've been really fortunate. And again, I'm also banking a lot on my network, because once I knew I was getting this position, I just asked a bunch of folks or my supervisor at the time for my SDSU position. I was like, hey, do you happen to know anyone that knows anything about this 6 college place? Because I don't know a ton about it and I would love to know more. One of my instructors worked at 6 college, so I got to ask her some questions. My preparation for the interview involved a lot of like research the website, the mission, the values, look up that team. Like, what does that team look like? What do they put on their social media? What do they put on their websites? What is important to like the 6 college advising team that what do they tell their students? And then do I align with that? And can I convince them that I align with that? It can be, yeah, there's a lot of research that can go into these, especially if you're going to like cast a wide net and then apply for as many as possible, get back a few. I'm really big on like, do as much research as you can. And again, be your authentic self when you show up in those spaces. There are like, technical professional ways to interview. But if you're giving them a version of yourself that's not true to your everyday work version of yourself, it can be difficult when you transition in and everyone's like, oh, we showed you our most ideal. You showed us your most ideal, but you're not that person every day of the week. So the balance of that, again, you always want to be as ideal as possible in a reasonable place. And then finally, I've mentioned a couple times, but just like prioritizing myself, what helps keep me human? What helps keep me motivated to want to keep coming to work every day? it's been a journey of really carving out time in my planner to do nothing, to recover from the amount of socializing, the amount of thinking, the amount of equity-minded work that we have to do, which takes up a ton of energy, a ton of consideration. That's also extremely important to my journey as well. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I'm supposed to mention before the next part. Okay, so from these discussion topics, and again, I'm sorry I did not tell this story in a very linear way, but I will introduce a Google Jamboard, and maybe we can kind of take these discussion topics and expand on them a little, ask specific questions if we would like. Again, I really would like this to be a very like interactive sort of segment. So let me get that all set up real quick. Thank you so much for being here. Okay. So I have dropped a link for a Jamboard into the chat if we're all able to access it. If Jamboard is completely new to anyone, basically it's the concept of if we were all in person, I just gave you all a bunch of sticky notes, we could put them all on a bunch of like poster boards and stuff, but it's all virtual. So I'm gonna share screen. So if this is what you are seeing, you are in the right place. And I've got little topics up in each of the corners on 2 different slides. It'll look a little different. On the left side, you've got a little toolbar, and I'm going to encourage you to kind of write down on sticky notes, like, and also maybe include like your initials or something. But I would love if you would like to share like what part of this, or was this relevant to your journey? Like, did you go to grad school, or like what's been difficult about the job application process for you, or what kinds of professional development have you been doing or interested in? And we can kind of like chat about all those different things. And again, trying to stick to whatever is most relevant to y'all. My journey is not the only way to go. There are folks there are definitely advisors that did not go to grad school yet, or they're going to and they haven't yet. And I think they, their journey looks different. I cannot speak on the other ways. Hopefully we can all chat and share our experiences. I'll give you some time for that. I'm going to share sound just for a little background music while we're filling this out a little bit. Seeing a lot of really awesome thoughts and seeing a lot of really awesome engagement on the first frame. If you look at the top of the screen, there's also another frame that includes like teaching learning moments, which I'm kind of framing as like, this is what I wish I knew before going into this, but learned with like trial by fire. You know what I mean? Because in a classroom or in a reading or an article, they're not telling you about how to handle like a crisis situation. They're not telling you about how something a student tells you might like you're going to be as present as possible, and then afterward you're going to be absolutely sapped of energy. No one tells you about those moments. So feel free to add any teaching learning moments that have been useful for you. It is very linked to the things I wish I knew, but things I wish I knew is literally like, wish I knew it was going to be this hard. Teaching learning moments is like, this is what I got out of this. And then if I'm missing anything, because I know I'm missing lots of stuff, we've got alternate perspectives and other topics. We've got next moves and considerations as well, because it sounds like we're all kind of in varying degrees of in our field. And I think like the stress of getting to your goal, some of it gets dissipated, and then after a while it's like, okay, so what should we be thinking about or working toward next? Maybe not in as much of a stressful frenzy as before, but should always be trying to think about how to get to where to doing the work you really want to be doing and stuff. No. Very cool. I'm gonna give you all a little bit more time while I kind of process. Ooh.
Erin, can you expand on your thoughts on alternate perspectives and other topics again, please?
It's just if it's not something that's been covered in any of these topics, that's where it can go. I was trying to keep it so it was like one at each corner instead of like a big scary web. But yeah, if you have like things that I've missed or things you have questions about, that's where that goes. To kind of start chatting a little bit on what's been shared on the first slide, and I'm still sharing screen. I have like very soft music, makes me feel better. So it sounds like I feel like this is Ryan. If Ryan was being constant with his yellow sticky notes. But grad school is extremely recommended for this field because of how competitive it can be, and it is an unfortunate reality of the job field right now that grad degrees have become like the default must-have role that the bachelor degree was supposed to be. Again, there are ways that I've seen advisors not have to have graduate degrees as they begin, but their journey was a little different. They got to be like peer advisors, or maybe they got temp jobs, or again, they like knew someone at the institution. They knew their work and could vouch for them, and then they were supported into applying and things like that. But love, I think this is Rachel, like for cohort and connections, for expansion of understanding, and that like 1 year of experience in the qualification section. But yes, only if this is a thing that works for you. It's extremely tedious. You have to do like, you'll be working, you're close to 40 hours a week, but not getting paid full time if you're doing just assistantships. And then you have like 3 to 6 hours of classes, a couple nights a week. It's a lot of work. I found it extremely worth it because it gave me I love whoever wrote this one, just like helpful for the context of the field, for learning about functional areas, the language, the acronyms, getting started on the networking, because you get to say, hi, I'm a grad student at this program. A bunch of people, regardless of how big your program is, say, oh, that's wonderful. Let me help you. Let me give you knowledge. Let me give you people. I don't know what I can do for you, but I know someone who can, as someone who's been professionally in this field for XYZ years. And then, of course, like having that shared experience, that shared suffering of getting through a graduate program with other folks at the exact same time and context as you. Grad school cohorts can make it or break it a lot of the time. And yes, it does remove an administrative barrier of, again, that requirement that they want you to have one. Will they always pay you for one? Hard to say sometimes for some institutions. Do some research on that for sure. Just to touch on the job application process, again, most of us are in our roles, but I love this one of, it is tedious, but if you have the bandwidth, intentional cover letters help. As someone that sits on a hiring committee on a lot of searches, and on the flip side, on the other side of that, that can feel repetitive and tedious. You can get sick of your own cover letter and your own phrases, and it's hard to keep that fresh and engaging, but it is necessary. It is. The thing that helped me the most was having like a structure for all of my stuff. Like I had my more or less template that I knew I could just rearrange things. And then in my research process of the position I was going for, I would try to just incorporate, like everyone says, you want the keywords from the job description. I always try to incorporate mission and values for whatever school I'm going for. I want to look like from the beginning, I want to look like I resonate with you and the work you're doing. And then you meet me and you're like, oh, of course, I'll see you in this positive light. And then I'll be more likely to want to say yes. Or at least that's what I'm hoping has worked for me. There are many, many, many factors. Once the interview like Zoom or you walk out the door and it's done, there's a lot, it's out of your hands at that point. There's a lot of other factors that could go into getting a yes or a no than you and your qualifications, which is very strange, but that is kind of what that reality is. But if you're staying within your institution, that also is pretty helpful to be an internal candidate. Someone that already knows the policies, someone that already maybe knows people, that understands the work that's going to happen. we're using that capital, right? Using those resources that we have. Networking seems to be really important, both helpful personally and professionally. Yes, I've been talking a lot about professional networking, how it can help you, like the mentors that have supported me and written my letters of rec and looked at my resume like hours before the deadline to help me make sure it was okay. I would not be here without them. But like the journey to building my network did feel awkward because not every relationship or acquaintance is going to pan out. But you do need to connect with others, and I think practice makes it better, makes it easier. You start learning, like, okay, here are the things that I talk about the first time I'm going to connect with someone, or here's how I can like tell that I'm going to want to get along with someone, or we're going to have like a more reciprocal mentorship like relationship, or just connection with a colleague or something like that. Meeting people at conferences and maintaining those connections are really awesome too, especially if you're trying to expand or leave an institution or area, or even just switch from one office to another. Those are all awesome. But yes, essential. Every role and opportunity has been due to a connection. Some HR roadblocks in my way, but despite a network of support, but without the network, I wouldn't be able to learn half the openings or if they're good fits. Yes, want to make that bigger. That's big yes. Because the job title could be ideal. It's a small miracle if the pay is ideal, but it's good to know if you're working this hard for what could be a good fit. But aside from the professional side of networking, I also want to emphasize the like personal side of networking. I think I have cried to every mentor I have ever had over stress, over life, over the stress of applying to jobs and the stress of grad school, or of I don't know what I want to do anymore. I don't know if this is worth it conversations. You need folks that are outside of your office context, right? Someone that has nothing to do with your paycheck, someone that maybe isn't even in higher ed, or just is far enough from your functional area that it's not going to come back to you or anything. And just find those people that you know you can trust to give you encouragement, to hold space for you, to help you keep going. Again, those things that help keep you human. Finding relationships, finding like colleagues and mentors that can do both of those things are irreplaceable. You find those and you keep those. Those are the folks that you want in your life. Those are good people. I enjoy these like professional development thoughts, mentorship programs, being involved in conferences like NASPA, or all of these different opportunities. For me personally, I'm trying to focus on developing job skills. So I'm pushing myself to do a lot of presentations, even if I'm uncomfortable, because I want to make sure that I'm flexing those muscles. As a current advisor, I'm really not doing as many presentations as other advisors have in the past, just because of how we've switched some things over to virtual. So things can be recorded, things feel different. It's not me showing up to an auditorium full of 500 students. It's me showing up to a webinar of however many students that I cannot even see other than a number. But I also want to engage more with like professional organizations like NASPA, AERA, different things like that, just to build my network outside of UC San Diego. When I first got here, my first goal was to build my UCSD village, because I left my SDSU village. I had so many resources, so many people's offices that I could just text and be like, hey, are you here? Can we get some coffee or something real quick? Or can I get your opinion on something? I wanted to build that up here at UC San Diego, and it's been wonderful. I love all of my colleagues. They've been really great, including the ones here now. Thank you for being here. Because again, being able to be myself, even when I'm not my best, is extremely important to me in any work that I do. If I don't feel safe enough to do that, that's not a place I'm going to be staying for long. I also love, I think this is Rachel, just anything your current job is offering, don't be afraid to ask and make a case for their support, and keep track/notes of webinars and presentations. Yeah, anything you hear about, things that just fly into people's inboxes on a listserv. Also just anything within reason. Make sure that you are building the building the idea of yourself that you are down to do certain types of work, but not all of the work, because we don't want you to get overloaded. And exploring different things outside of your roller field to keep it interesting and add more additional skill sets. Yes, we love the variety. We got to keep things interesting. Interesting in a good way, because sometimes our jobs can be interesting in not a great way. To get into this real quick, and I know that we're almost at time, and I apologize again, I talk a lot. I want to talk about these teaching and learning moments. So kind of entering your grad program kind of in the mindset of like, I didn't come here to make friends, I'm here to get my degree and get going, but kind of making the best connections and learning the most. Thanks so much for being here. Making the best connections and learning the most from your cohort mates, but also like don't judge a role by its cover. My least favorite roles seem the most exciting and the most boring sounding have been my largest areas of growth. Yeah, I love that actually. I hadn't really considered that. Do you want to like elaborate on that a little bit? It's okay if not. Okay, no worries. And this one's, gosh, I love all of these. These are all really, really good. Though serving your students is key, you are not responsible for solving the problems of institutions, because institutions have tons of them, and you alone are not the one person that's going to change all of it. No, you're all good, Daniel. But yeah, if you wanted to elaborate on that one, Daniel, you can if you'd like.
Oh, yeah. In regards to the judge a role by a cover, right? Yeah, I've just found that, I don't know, I think there's so much more to roles than kind of what's presented when you're applying, and also when you're kind of just having those initial conversations. I think all of us have learned there's a lot more to our roles once we're in them and start to actually do the work. So I've found that like my law firm job that seemed like such a simple and boring, like, oh, I'm going to do things every day, has taught me a majority of my people skills and trauma handling that I now utilize every single day and am benefiting from. So it's kind of a role I didn't expect to gain that expertise from.
I love that. That's awesome. And again, using those transferable skills, they're all very relevant, because you got to do that all the time. A lot of our students come in with lots and lots of questions. You got to be prepared for anything and be able to handle it and still provide support. Thank you for sharing. And then finally, I think every place and position has its issues, but you need to figure out what issues you can live with or are deal breakers for you. Yes. Yes. I think from the other side, before I had become an advisor, I was just very focused on like all the positives. Like, I'm just going to do the work that I want to do, which is to like advise students. I'm going to like have X, Y, and Z type of team. I'm going to have these like boundaries. I'm going to have all these things. And then, of course, every position has its issues. Before I had gotten the position, I had not technically had like constant advising. I hadn't had constant advising on my workload. It was a part of my job, but not the majority of my job. And so when I became an advisor, I was slammed a little bit. I also came in at the start of the school year, which was also its own special kind of like difficult. My training was like constant Zoom meetings and figuring out all these things. And then they're like, okay, we're ready to shadow you as an advisor now. And I'm like, I just got here. I've never been to this school. I'm still learning all the policy. Okay, cool. Let's just go. But yeah, it came up with its own sets of issues, like how many people I would really like to be talking to in a day, or just balancing my capacity for all the different things that can come up. Because when the Zoom goes on or when the student walks in the room, I got to be ready for anything. And that's a lot of brain. That's a lot of like thinking and consideration. And then I was against the idea of coaching when compared to advising at the start of a course, but about both. But at the end, I was all in on coaching. Coaching is such a valuable skill. And I think in like my context, I don't hear a ton about it. But again, I'm in the weird castle of academic advising. But yeah, coaching is a wonderful like just skill to have professionally. I think the overlap is like, it's a very close circle. There's so much overlap. I think the biggest thing with advising is like, I tell a lot of policy, which is one of the things that I wish I knew. I wrote how much of my job is writing to explain my job. Yeah, because I have learned very early on, you want to cover yourself, cover your bases. So a lot of my job is like, I'll meet with a student for 10 minutes, but I'll write for 15 minutes just to make sure I've given them like, oh, it was so good to meet you. Here are the resources I said I would send you. And then writing notes on, oh, okay, so we discussed the degree audit. They're thinking about changing their major. I recommended these things and these actions and this stuff. Here are more links. No one told me that. I had not thought about that part. So if anyone's got difficulty with writing and things, a lot of advising is a bit of writing just to make sure you've covered. This is what I discussed with that student, because they're going to forget or they're going to misunderstand. And in a couple years or like quarters, they're going to come back and be like, hey, you told me this. And I'm like, no, I wrote it down. I told you this. And I'm sorry that we misunderstood, but we can do this from here on out. How hard this was going to be is an understatement, and the can't get experience until you have experience, and the efforts of the grad program not being seen as experience or value to HR afterwards. Those are difficult and very, very real. I have 2 masters. I don't think I'm getting paid extra for either of them. But that one was on me and the research that I had done to get into my role. There are a lot of other places that have that work differently as we are in this field, as we are meeting more people, as we become more comfortable with deconstructing the institution a little bit more and discussing things like salary and promotion and what's getting paid for how much. We'll start understanding more like what's going to value my experiences more. For now, I'm personally trying to get into the 3 to 5 years of experience range in one place, because that was something I struggled with as I was applying. That was the imposter syndrome loop I had myself in. It was like, oh, it wants 3 to 5 years of experience. I only have 2 masters and a ton of experience of work. And every school is going to treat that differently, so I'm trying to get to a place of like, I got it. I got 3 to 5 years of experience and more. You can fight me now. But your grad program and your experiences are valid. It is how we show them and how we, it definitely is just like how you show it, how you explain it, how you get past all the robots to get to a human being and say, hey, this is me and I know how to do this stuff and more. And I would be so valuable on your team. Create connections with coworkers and bosses early. They become your support beams when the work gets too heavy to handle. Yes, the people very relevant to your job, helping you. Learning how to tell your story and experiences is key. You may be doing a lot of great work, but others need to see or hear this to get a better understanding of what you do. I love this. Whoever wrote this, thank you. Because that is what I'm trying to do right now. And it's what I try to do as an advisor, and just in any space that I'm in, I try to show up authentically, to encourage other folks to show up authentically, and hope that it resonates with somebody. If some part of it has resonated with you at some point today, then I can feel good about this when the Zoom turns off. But I think I have probably gone a little over time. Basically, the last sort of like piece I wanted to leave you with was sort of thinking about like, what do you want to do for your next action item? You are also more than welcome to reach out to me as a resource. I am more than happy to like help support you on your journey. One sec.
Are you going to put your email in the chat, Erin?
Yeah. Or well, I was also going to put it on screen. But a reflection is kind of like, what's a small thing you can do to take steps towards your next move? It could be like, looking something up, making time for yourself. It could be reaching out to folks you haven't talked to in a while. But overall, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I believe I'll be handing it off to Rachel.
Thank you, Erin, Nicole, so much for sharing, and I really enjoyed the engaging direction that you took your presentation. Like, that's always great in these spaces, right, that are really hard for us to feel like we're connected. So thank you so much for that. You did a great job. And thank you everyone for attending. We really appreciate you being here. We have, I think, a couple more sessions left in the month. So there's a link for that in the chat. And then if you would be so kind as to do our survey so we can get some feedback for the next round next year. And again, we really appreciate you being here. Oh, Resume Lab starts in 30 minutes. So if you're interested in that or know of anyone who'd be interested, the links for the Zoom are on that first link that I gave you that sends you to the website for all of our programming. So thank you again, Erin, Nicole. Thank you everyone for being here. We really appreciate it. We hope you have a good rest of your Friday. Happy weekend.
Thank you all. Have a good one.